And here we are.
We're live.
The Life on Life's Terms podcast. I'm Tom Robinson, and we're still not affiliated with any of these darn 12-step programs.
Huh.
We're not affiliated, however.
We do like them.
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Big fans.
I'm Chris Mandeville. We are here at a New Way Recovery Center in Quincy, Mass. on Quincy Ave. Lots of resources here for people in recovery. And
come on down.
Yeah, come on down. It's pretty cool here. There's a whole community.
Yeah.
And they are ever so gracious to let us use the space to provide you with this podcast. So we are very grateful to them. And
right. And so, speaking of podcasts
Yes.
and community, we're trying to build our community. So if you could please subscribe, it would really help us out a lot. I mean, we do this for free and for fun. Sort of
Yes.
fun, but sort of
Yeah.
serious too.
yes,
And,
tonight we have Jean Marie. She is going to tell her story, and it's a pretty powerful one. I don't know if I would have made it through it, to be honest. So
Could you could you close that door?
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
You're excused.
All right. So we will turn it over to you, and
So I've got
It's
the
all
mic.
yours.
It's all
Yes.
me, huh?
It's all you.
All right.
just gonna bring that a little closer.
Or I need to sit closer.
Yeah,
Okay.
either way. Either way.
Oh, good evening, everybody that's tuning in. It's really great to get the chance to sit with some good guys.
Yeah.
One I've known for a while and one I just met.
Yes,
Um,
and I've wanted to have you on here because we want to cover all aspects of everything.
I think you're gonna get
You know,
that with me for
yeah,
sure.
like we don't want just recovery. We want people that are, adult children of alcoholics. We want therapists. We want doctors. We want people that work in the field that aren't addicted. We want everybody, because the more information we can offer to the people out there, the better off it is that someone
Yeah.
can find some help in what we do.
Absolutely. It's all about understanding. It's all about spreading a message. It's all about getting some message,
Yes.
for ourselves and learning and stuff like that. And to be honest, I have dreams and aspirations of helping more
Yes.
with this project
Yes.
in the future in different forms. But, we can talk about that
Well,
later.
They're not going to be dreams. They're goals.
They're
They're
goals.
goals at this
Good,
point.
good,
They're goals.
good
yes.
things to
That's
come.
right.
Yes.
That's
Put
right.
it that way.
All right. Well, let's see. I'll start a little bit about myself. I grew up in a town called Rockland. And I'm the oldest of three. I did grow up in an alcoholic home. My father was the alcoholic. And I remember early on, never knowing, from the beginning when he would walk through the door, whether it was going to be a good night or a bad night. So, the unmanageability in my life started really, really early with me. Everybody's always scrambling or, walking on eggshells. I am the oldest.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm the oldest, so for some apparent reason, I felt like I was the one that was, I always say this, I became the caretaker early
Yeah.
on.
Was he angry? Or was your mom angry? Was there anger?
No
No.
anger. He was actually a pretty, if there's such a thing, he was a pretty happy kind of a drunk.
Yeah. So
there
your
would be,
mom was the one who was unhappy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my mom is the total opposite. Never touched anything in her life. Maybe had one cocktail at each kid's wedding.
Yeah, right.
But total opposite. And she grew up with parents that were extremely strict, and he grew up, and I believe it's a family disease. My father's dad died when he was 12. He was an alcoholic and beat him. And he was raised by his sister, so you're only learned and taught what you
right.
what you're given is what you're given. And
Right.
Yeah.
he didn't have much tools when he had us, and he was great when we were little. But as we all know, this is a progressive disease, and as I got older, I started to really recognize that there was something seriously wrong going on in my house.
Right.
You
And
know?
that's gotta be pretty heartbreaking. Losing respect a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
I wanted to bring friends back, and I never did. Nobody. The sleepovers were
Right.
always at somebody else's house. They were never at my house.
Yeah.
More,
That-
more
you're like,
because,
"Oh, I
you know,
can't
I don't
do
know
that."
what's going to happen.
Exactly. I have no idea.
Actually, there was one scenario that it was probably in my junior year, and I decided to bring a friend home. I don't know why for that particular day. And he walked. We had a dog, and he walked in the door and tripped flat on his face. And thank God the dog was laying there, so he made it look like he was patting the dog because he saw the look of horror on my face. And I immediately said, "Oh yeah, we're going now. See you later." Boop. That was like the last time that had ever happened. But for me, one of the things that I noticed about my dad, I guess, was he also was a pot smoker, and the pot made him happy. What is what I noticed around the age of 11. I started smoking cigarettes at 11.
Oh, really?
So was that like the first time, like the first thing that you did was smoking cigarettes?
Yeah.
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 Like probably stole them from your dad or your mom.
Yeah, my mom and dad both smoked.
Yeah.
So I stole it. Got caught.
Yep.
Beep, beep, beep,
Oh,
beep.
yeah.
Okay, that was, but I was like, okay, I'm not just gonna say I won't smoke in the backyard or I'm gonna get bagged.
Yeah, right. I'll go down the street.
I'll go down the street or
Hide
another
behind a
friends.
tree or
Smoke
something
'em
in
at
the
school.
backyard.
Yeah, exactly.
Not right outside where they just look out the window like, what the fuck are you doing out there?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally, I think, was right outside his window. I couldn't have been any more. I couldn't have been more obvious. But one of the things I noticed is there used to be this black case on his bureau, and he used to go in there and he'd come out, and God, I'd say 6 months. I obsessed about that.
What's this case?
What is in that case in his
Oh,
room?
really?
And then whatever
Is that
it
the
is.
age of 11?
Now I picked up for my first thing was pot. Obviously, was 14.
Yeah.
14.
Oh, 14. Okay.
The cigarettes came first, and then a couple of years later, as I said, my father's addiction started to progress too. I mean, when I first remember being little, it was more drinking on the weekends here and there, and then it became a daily thing. He was a very functional He worked his whole life.
Functioning alcoholic.
Yeah, he went to work, brought home a
there was-
paycheck.
back then it was like everybody was basically a functioning alcoholic. You know
Oh,
what
a
I
lot
mean?
of people,
You know,
yeah.
a lot of blue collar, a lot of, just middle America, like,
Yeah.
Brought home the paycheck,
Yeah.
whatever the wife said, yeah, okay, and then the rest was to do what he wanted with. So, I, like I said, I had noticed that for a long time, and then I noticed when he did do something from what was ever coming from that case, he seemed pretty happy. And I can tell you, and I'm 100% of this now. I didn't know at the time because I had done my step work, but I always felt probably from 6 on, I would say, a little odd. Something didn't really feel right with me. Again, I became the people pleaser. My father would come in and I would be
Awkward.
awkward,
Yeah.
not smart, not pretty, all that inside stuff.
Not enough. Yeah.
I remember one of the first really trauma things for me was, and this comes sometimes with addiction, is depression. And we had a house, and next to the house was a barn, and my father was a mechanic, and in the barn, he fixed the cars. And I remember one night he was extremely drunk and upset, and he, not probably thinking that he was saying this to his 8-year-old daughter, but he basically told me he was going to go hang himself in the garage.
Oh, my
In the barn.
word.
So
That's trauma.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
for a while after that comment, and I couldn't understand. I'm an 8-year-old. Wouldn't I be enough? Why would
Holy
you want to
crap, yeah.
go kill yourself? I'm your daughter, But
So you internalized that.
I did, and I
Yeah.
spent, believe it or not, I spent a whole year getting up every other night and literally tiptoeing down the stairs to go to the outside barn to just make sure I flicked the lights on, shut the lights off, and make sure that it wasn't hanging there. Because we don't know. I mean, what child's gonna know that at that
Right.
age?
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I mean? I didn't know it was
exactly.
part of some of his addiction.
What adult is going to think that would affect the child so much? You got to look back and say, back then, people didn't realize how smart kids are and how much they take in and how much things affect them and all this stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh,
it really that's just such a perfect example of how much
I'm
we
trying
affect
to
a
like
little
be
kid.
cognitive of that now, like with my daughter. You know, like
Oh, yeah.
the things that I say and you know the things that I do and how I react or respond to what happens at home. Like it's crazy. I got this book called The Peaceful Parent.
Nice.
And like this woman was the same way. Like screamed, yelled. She was like the moment that I realized I needed to change was when I was yelling at my son for yelling at me.
Right, right.
You know, like
Yep.
it's all learned. Like everything, she's like a sponge right now. Everything that I do, she's gonna pick up.
Yeah.
You know.
And like like you said, like parents, you know, especially if you're a brand new parent or whatever, you don't know that. I mean, we'll speed up to my story. I mean, I have a lot of that stuff too, where I wasn't aware. I'm like, they don't know what's going on. Oh, yes, they did.
Yeah, they
absolutely.
Oh, yes, they did.
Yeah.
You know, so I made my way through high school. I always talk about this when I ever talk from the podium. My first, I guess, addiction or obsession was men. I thought they were going to fix whatever it was going on inside me that didn't make me feel good about who I was.
Right.
So I always said, I always seeked something. So, you know, for me, like I said, it was high school. The boys noticed me. I was a cute little girl.
Yeah,
you know,
so. It was always something outside, something external to
people
fill
are
that
fantastic
void.
for that.
Oh,
you can blame them. You know, they're recreational. You know, all sorts of good stuff.
Yeah.
People.
Euphoric. You can get, you know, like
You
it
know.
covers everything.
Oh,
It covers everything.
I mean, and then again, you can stem that right back to the fact that I didn't get the attention that I was supposed to get from my dad. And I did, in my story you'll hear, I did make an amends with my dad on his deathbed. But, you know, for a lot of years, the stuff that I didn't get or should have gotten, he wasn't, like I told you, you know, he can only bring to the table what he can bring, and he didn't have that ability to really love. And that's something, as us growing up, I have a middle brother and a younger sister, and the word love was very seldomly used in the house.
Yeah.
It was an awkward type of a thing.
Right.
You know, everybody, I was always the outsider, go-getter. My brother was the same. He, you know, did sports with him, and then tech school, and he was never around.
Yeah.
And then my sister was like stuck to my mother's apron, like so scared of everything, you know.
Oh,
but, you know, so by the time I got to high school, you know, it was all about that. I picked up pot, so pot became, all through high school, became a daily thing that I did. And then if I was involved with, I was one of those people, you talk about chameleons, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was one that was like, I'm not just gonna want to be, you know. Back then, it was called the freaks and the jocks and the nerds and whatever the groups were. There might have been 5 or 6 different cliques, and I was not happy with just being in one. I had to be in all of them. And if someone in one of those groups did not like me, I would make sure whatever it was going to be that I was going to get them to like me.
Yeah, right.
And
Because we need the approval of everybody. Everybody.
Yeah.
What, like, I remember being younger. I mean, like, just the way they're looking at me, I know they don't like me. There's something that, you know.
They're definitely talking about me.
Yeah.
I know this. Right. Like I'm on
you know,
that.
and then you overcompensate one to fix that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
crazy.
Absolutely. So, you know, pretty much my whole high school revolved around finding the right person and in and out of relationships, smoking. And I really didn't get into any trouble. I did struggle with school and the tension piece of me of being able to sit still. And I convinced myself, again, part of my inside voice telling me lies, you're too stupid for this stuff. So, you know, I was stoned all the time too, so I probably was, but you know, I just had a hard time. I could study for vocabularies, and then the test would come, and we'd go blank. I'd be like, "You've got to be kidding me!" So, you know, college was not an option for me. I already knew by the time I hit my senior year. I'm like,
Excuse me.
Yep. I'm not going to go to college. I could barely get through high school. So,
Right.
So I think I was 17, and we got the fake IDs to go to the nightclubs.
Oh, nice.
So
They were easy back then.
yeah, they were easy back then. I don't
You
know
could peel it open, change the picture, glue it back together.
And I didn't even bother with that. I had somebody else's fake ID who was like 6 inches shorter than me, 100 pounds heavier than me.
Yeah.
Different hair color.
Yep.
No problem. Used to
And-
go to the rat. Oh, I need to go to the rat.
Like crazy. That's funny. 9 Lansdowne Street. Yeah.
Mm.
So
yeah.
at 17, and honestly, I didn't have strict parents. My father was always intoxicated, majority of the time, and my mother was too caught up in that. So, because I hadn't really gotten any huge issues, she trusted everything I said to her.
Yeah. So you were like right under the
70% of it was all
danger.
lies.
right under the radar.
Sorry, Mom, if you're hearing this now, but most of it was lies. I'm
Oh,
going
yeah.
to my girlfriend's house, and I'd go over and get changed, and so the night
So you did go there, you just didn't stay there.
I just didn't stay there.
yeah.
No, so the nightclubs became the it thing for me, and there were nights where obviously we'd all get drunk and not know where we parked the car or any of that. Oh yeah, and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
But my mission, and I go back to this all the time because it stems from my dad. I mean, my mission was that okay, if I'm not going to go to college, then I'm going to find the man of my dreams. Every little girl's dream. Find the white horse, the knight, the house, the picket fence, the children.
Yep.
No, it doesn't go like that.
Yeah.
But
I'll be a stay-at-home mom.
so out at nightclubs, I decided at one point I danced at a nightclub, not stripped. Yeah, let me clarify that.
Yeah.
Back then, they used to have performance dancers.
It's funny because I found pictures of my mom when I was a kid, and she was a go-go dancer.
Yeah.
This woman had, like, when we were kids, she would dress us up. It's funny, around this time of year, as like Kiss characters, and like we like won every contest we went to because she had the wigs, she had the big platform boots. She sewed, so she would make our costumes.
That's awesome.
And, like, I'm looking at these pictures, and she's like got this short blonde hair, and she's got this sequin dress, and she's on this little table. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's like she went around with bands and were they dancers?
Exactly.
I put a couple of chain link cages in some nightclubs when I was
Oh yeah,
putting up fences. For
funny.
go-go dancers. Yeah.
They had so it was Vincent's on
Oh, yeah.
Randolph.
Oh, Vincent's. Yeah.
And it was probably my first son was born in '89, and I graduated in '83. So between '83 and '85, that was my mission, to go out, and I can tell you countless nights. I used to say, well, drinking really wasn't my thing, but it obviously was at that point too, because everybody has stories like this, but you guys will crack up on my stories. So, I say I never liked who I was. I always wanted to change who I was. And so I would go out so you guys physically see me now. I have like brown hair. I get brown eyes. And, I'd go out to a nightclub with a wig on, and first my hair would have been maybe short here, but I'd have a wig on that would come down to about here.
yeah.
And
Really?
and I'd have green contact lenses in.
Wow.
And then back in the day, they used to have these breast jelly things. So I was,
Chicken cutlets.
what the hell they were. And they used to have them, so I'd go from to really, and I'd go out to a nightclub or whatever the case would be, and end up in the next morning, the guy would be like, who the hell are you?
Weren't you a blonde?
Weren't you a blonde with blue eyes? And now I've got short brown hair, brown eyes, and no breasts. But that's just a funny example. But I did that a lot because I was just so insecure with who I was, and it wasn't until so then I figured after a couple years of the club stuff, maybe I'm gonna go to a gym, and I met somebody that did bodybuilding. So like I said, the cameo in me comes out in whatever I do, and I ended up doing bodybuilding for 3 years, from 19 to 21.
Oh wow,
If I wanted to,
that's
if I
pretty
wanted
neat.
to be with him, I better go to
Yeah,
the
yeah,
gym, and
yeah.
he was there 7 days a week, 3 days a week. I mean, 3 hours a night, rather. It was crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow,
He was from Quincy. He actually won Mr. Massachusetts back in.
my joints are hurting just thinking about
I
that.
Yeah,
know. I
yeah.
know.
So whatever they did, you did.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I mean,
Whatever you liked, I liked.
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
yeah, that sounds good. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's the caretaker, isn't that? That we found that a lot of guests who are in Al-Anon or have parents or they're
Yeah.
alcoholics end up with that caretaker thing.
Yeah, and like I said, I think for the fact that my family, the alcoholic was my dad, and the dad plays a huge role in a girl's life.
Yes, yes.
It stems what they believe in, and sometimes for me, and I talk about this, love and sex got a little twisted for me. I thought that, and I'm not saying how many people I was with, but, I thought that in order to have a gentleman like me or want to spend time with me, that, I had to give it up a little earlier than normal, which then internalized made me feel crappy inside again. So now I'm adding more crap to the inside
Yeah,
stuff.
and that's gone askew even worse now.
I'm sure.
Like,
I'm sure. I'm absolutely.
no, people don't know what love is.
No.
I would say 80% of the people out there think that having sex with someone is love, and
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
couldn't be the furthest from the fucking truth. To be
Yeah.
honest,
You're right. You're
To
right.
be honest.
You're absolutely
Right.
right.
like I see how people are in and out of relationships and like, all these hookups and Bumble and Tinder and all this
Oh,
bullshit. Like, you guys are just spreading disease is what you're doing.
yeah.
To be honest, you know what I mean?
Well,
it's and in more ways than one.
Takes
in
a huge,
more ways than one.
huge commitment
Yeah.
to be involved.
Yeah.
And now all that over time comes love, but so God, so that relationship again. My relationships were a couple of years, but something always just whatever wasn't right, and it was 1988, and it was Players in Weymouth actually.
I went there once.
You did? Did you like
Yeah.
it?
It was like an all ages night or something. Yeah, it
Now
was
it's
all right.
CV now it's a CVS.
Yeah. Now it's in Rockland. It's back in Rockland
I
again,
think,
right?
yeah, right. It plays
yeah.
in Rockland. Yeah.
I don't know if I liked it or what. I had two groups of friends, and one of the groups of friends were the type of friends who would go to some place like that.
Yeah.
And I just kind of stood on the wall, and I don't know. I didn't feel a part of when I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember everybody getting on the floor during that part in Rock Lobster.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
I think that because I was obviously when I said I danced in a club. I mean, I always loved to dance, so that's where for me, that's why I liked going to them.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of bathing suit contests at the time because, keep in mind, now I did 3 years of bodybuilding, so I was in great shape.
Right.
And I walked into Players and immediately saw
There he was.
There he was. That's the man.
Yep.
That's it. I'm marrying this guy.
There was probably a light from the stage shining down on his head.
You know what? It could have been. I remember that I did win the bathing suit contest. I came in first place, and he came and got me off the stage because he was one of the bouncers there.
Yeah.
And so, lo and behold, we connected, and I met him. I think it was 88, in the end of 88. We dated. And I'll share this because I don't have any shame on any of my stuff. I met him 3 months later. I got pregnant. Didn't have any problems with the guy before that for 2 years, probably because he was doing steroids or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
whatever. And we had just met, and it just wasn't the timing, so I chose not to have that baby. But 6 months later, I got pregnant again. And I said, well, I'll be damned. I guess I'm having this kid with or without you.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And we decided to make a go of it. He was more of a player than I was. I realized, what did I get myself into? And those are the
look
type
where
of
he
guys.
worked.
Yeah, and on top of listen, on top of me telling you that I was always on the mission to find the guy, I didn't tell you that the guy was always the bad boy that had 6 other chicks on the side.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't the guy that was going to treat me right or anything else on top of it. So I always went for the hottest guy in the room, and you didn't really care too much about me. So then game on for Gene. Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm not like any other girl, you know. So I'd get myself all in this pretzel trying to, and that's, you know, what I did a lot. So I met him. We had our first baby. And remind you through all this, I was not using. I didn't have a drinking problem, or I wasn't smoking pot. I stopped smoking when I took up bodybuilding.
Wow.
I became a health nut type thing through all these years. And
So your addiction was like
laying dormant.
Love, like acceptance at this point. You were using that for.
Filling it. It was,
substituting with that.
And then having my first baby, of course, you know, you always know, you have children. Oh my God, my first child.
Yep. Oh, that's going to fix me.
You know, he's changed my world.
Yep.
Matter of fact, he actually changed his dad's world, because when I met David, he was an alcoholic. But he was a binge alcoholic, so it was on the weekends when we go to clubs, and here I am, like 8 months pregnant. I'm going home, and he's like, "Yeah, catch up with you later." And I'd see a girl drop him off, and I'm like, "I hope this is gonna change after the baby's born," you know. And it did, actually.
Yeah.
Our first son, Corey, was born July 1st, 1989, and he did a 380, and we decided, everybody was like, get married. I'm like, let's just wait on this a little longer.
He did a 380?
No.
360. 380?
Yeah, 180 and
180, 360,
yeah.
whatever the heck that is.
Okay.
I don't know. You know, what?
He spun around.
He spun around.
He turned it around.
He turned it around.
All right.
He got his crap together. Oh, God. So we decided to wait till 18 months later, and we got married. I got married in September of 1990.
Wow.
And
That's when my son was born, September 1990.
really,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Things seemed good. The parents that I mentioned still lived there, and I had asked if we could knock the barn down and build a duplex, and they agreed to it. So now my father is still full blown, and I skipped a little of this, but by the time I was a senior, he was into coke. And by the time I was in my 20s, he was a crack addict.
Oh.
So he just went bing, bang, boom, diddy, boom. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So your mom held it together, and they didn't lose the house.
Yeah. It was they got it off my grandmother back in the day, $24,000. I mean, it was paid off by the time. Yeah. So, so they actually had to go put a mortgage. It was paid off, and then they had to put a mortgage on my side, which. Was fine, but I went from that back to the frying pan to live back at home with what I knew what would go on, and I just didn't really think how it was going to impact my children as they got older too. But along in November of 91, we had our second son, Jesse. It seemed all was well, but after my second son was born, I kind of noticed that we all do this, maybe not, but you know how you go like, I'm going to go buy 15 pairs of sneakers, or no, wait a minute, I'm going to go buy this Mercedes, and because it's gorgeous, and then 6 months later, I hate the payment, and I don't want the car anymore, and it's worn off, and all that.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of happened with my marriage.
Ooh.
Like, I thought I loved him. Thought having 2 kids was great, but then all of a sudden, 2 years into my relationship, I just didn't. I don't really know if I love this guy. But guess what happens? Right after my son Jesse was born, I find out I'm pregnant with twins. I was like,
Whoa.
You gotta be kidding me, right?
Yeah. Wow.
And I'm like, literally right after I had Jesse.
Yeah, because that's like the most fertile time for a woman.
Yeah, right after.
Oh, really?
I think he might have been 2 months, 3 months old when I found out I was pregnant. And they said, how far along did you say you were? And I said, I'm blah, blah, blah. And they said, well, okay. Well, I went for my ultrasound, and this literally happened. So I'm laying there, that the lady's got the screen in the ultrasound, and she goes, oh, there's one. Oh, wait a minute. There's 2 in your belly. I didn't know. I tried. He fell off.
Yeah.
He fell out of the chair onto the floor. I'm crying and don't know whether to be happy or like, are you kidding me? We got like,
Yeah, because now you want out of this relationship.
and I got a 2.5
and now you
here,
have
and
the
a
Brady
what?
bunch.
I have like 2.5, and then Jesse just probably is like 3 months old.
Yeah.
And now you're telling me I'm having 2 more babies. And I was like, okay, there better be a girl in there or something, please. I'm like, you know, boys I think are the easiest, but I mean, my pregnancy was tough.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I had the 2 at home, and then I started to go into false labor around 6 months, and they said, you know, this is way too early for you to have
bed
these,
rest.
Yeah, way too early for you to have these babies. You need to just stay on bed rest, and
Because they're twins, and now they're going to be smaller than a normal baby anyways.
yeah.
So,
And I have a hard time. We talked about this earlier. I'm a goer. I'm a cleaner. My OCD kicks in. I'm cleaning the house. You'd never even know I had kids because everything has a set place to go in my house. And I'm just right at that point. If I look back at my life, it was pretty unmanageable already because I thought I was managing everything, but everything was just, you know.
Right.
And they put me on bed rest, and everything seemed to be okay until around 28 weeks. And I started having contractions. They sent me to South Shore, and they said,
South Shore Hospital.
yeah, they said, yeah, no, you're going to Boston. You're going to Tufts Medical Center in Boston. I don't know if we can stop these babies from coming. I spent,
Wow.
yeah,
That's scary.
I spent 3 days on bed rest in the hospital, and they said, all right, you can get up to use the potty. And I think just the amount of pressure of, you know, trying to carry the babies, it just was like within 2 hours of letting me have that privilege, I went into full labor. David had just left. That was my husband at the time. And get back here right now because we're having them. He got back I had to have them C-section.
Wow.
One where they breached, but he got there just in the nick of time. My son Jordan came out first, and then I didn't know if there was a second girl, if the second baby was a girl, because they couldn't tell me. They said we think, but she kept on hiding her legs.
Yeah.
And 2 minutes later, Rachel was born, which I got to see like a hello and see it because they were taken off to the NICU. She was born.
Yeah.
She was born 1 pound 12 ounces.
Wow.
Wow.
And he
That's
was
like
2 pounds 3 ounces.
So small.
Tiny.
It's like a
It was
kitten weight.
crazy.
Kitten. Yeah.
Crazy. I have pictures of them. They literally fit in one of the little, because it was around Christmas time they were born. So they were born 1 week shy of Jesse's 1 year. So I have Irish triplets.
Wow. So they were born a week before his first birthday.
Yeah, they
Wow.
were supposed to be born in January, and they came November 8th, and Jesse turned 1 November 15th.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That was crazy.
3 kids in a year.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah. So, and then right after that, you know, so they had to spend 3 to 4 months in the hospital, of which this is where my, I guess my addiction really started to come into full force. I started having migraines. Everybody in my family suffers from migraines, and Furosets were readily available anywhere I wanted them, and so.
Is that opiate?
It's a barbiturate.
Oh, barbiturate.
With caffeine in it. And so what happened with me, most people take them and they go to sleep and it relaxes the muscles that are the tension and stuff. But for me, the caffeine, it was like, I've never done speed, but if I was going to say that's what I like, I was like, boo!
Yeah, right.
So it took care of the headache, but it also had me get up, get the other 2 ready. I put them in daycare. We'd run up to the hospital. We'd spend 2 or 3 hours up at Tufts Medical Center. We'd come all the way back home, take care of the kids, and then we'd go back up to Boston again, and we did that every single day for the 3 months.
Wow.
And
While you're chewing the Furosets.
while I'm chewing the Furosets.
Yeah.
And they were in my mouth every day. It was about a month into it. They do all these testings, and they said, sorry to tell you, Mr. and Mrs. McCauley, but your daughter is blind.
Whoa.
She was born with, they call it ROP, which is retinopathy of prematurity. Her retinas did not get a chance to develop properly because she came too early. And then they told me that Jordan had it, and there's like 5 stages it can go to. If it goes to 3, it can regress. If it bounces over to the next, they detach. Hers did, and his went back, so his eyesight was fine.
Oh.
So I was like, my only daughter. It devastated me. Devastated me. The doctor said to me I wanted to climb over the table, and I get it now. But he's like, well, better for her to have never seen than to see and then lose it. And I was like, you really, dude?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Why say that?
Why even say that to me? But
doesn't help.
So I believe at that point that amount of pain for me went from like we talk about this being a progressive disease. The Furosets went to if I could get my hands on Tylenol, codeines, or Vicodins. I get my hands on whatever. Cocaine I tried when I was 18. I just did the opposite to me. I didn't like it. Yeah, I could sleep and eat on it, and I was like, this is retarded. I don't like this.
So usually people that are ADHD and they give them a speed, it does the complete opposite. So
yeah, here we go, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
Because I know people that were crackheads that, like, they would chill and be like, take a big, huge rip and
really
be, like, completely fine and could focus and do whatever they want.
That's the only thing. I never tried the crack. And I think I didn't try the crack because it was a stubbornness, because I was like, I will not be like my father.
Yeah, right.
And that's what he did, and I never touched it. But
let me tell you, there's something psychological about that crack cocaine in me that I could envision it in my head so clearly, clearer than anything I could ever revisit in my memory, was that crack rock being lit and disappearing. Because it melts and disappears.
Yes,
and I could just picture it so clearly, and it brought me out several times. Like, I'm just gonna have to get a hit of crack. I'm a dope head. It's not gonna cause me problems. And next thing you know, I'm off and running.
Yeah.
My pocket's a friggin' rabbit.
I'm telling you, I think too. I mean, along with saying that, didn't want to be like my dad. I mean, I actually, between the cracking of the jaws going a mile a minute.
Oh, yeah, ratchet jaw.
I'm like, what are you doing? To one of my boyfriends that I had dated, I'm on the floor looking for white things, and I'm like, what are we looking for? To the tree police, there's somebody outside in the trees.
Carpet farming.
I'm out there looking, and I don't even know what the hell I'm looking for, but I'm like, no, I'm not even on the stuff.
They're out there. Who's out there?
Yeah. No, I was like, no, that's not going to be me. I'm not doing that.
I can remember driving, and I would be looking in the rearview mirror more than I was looking out of the windshield.
Oh, yeah.
Like, so paranoid that, like, the 78 Pinto that's behind me is...
Yeah. Or you're so fucked up that you're like, I know this guy in front of me is following me. I know they're following me.
I think I knew I already had enough shit going on. I didn't need that, right?
Yeah.
So, finally the babies came home.
This guy ahead of me is following me.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's too much.
Sorry.
That's all right. So at this point, Jordan was a little more sicker with lung problems. They told me he was deaf at one point. So now I have a daughter blind and a son that's going to be deaf. And I'm like, no. You need to retest his ears. He had ammonia several times in there.
Yeah.
Thank God they tested him again, and his hearing was fine. So I got to take them home. She came home in February. Jordan came home in March. And in June, I told my husband, get out.
Whoa.
I was like, I can't do this. It's not
brave.
working.
Yeah.
Was brave.
And
I'll tell you,
he may have been like, thanks. Woo! You know what I mean? Because now you got all this work that needs to be done for these kids that need care.
Much work.
But it's funny. I got to give him credit as much as, he is still a full-blown alcoholic today, too. But he was great. He got up and fed the kids always at night for me. He was a fun dad with the kids. It was just that, whatever I had going on inside of me, and I had looked at my parents' relationship. They had been, back in the day, you get married and you don't
stayed
get married. That's it.
You stayed married.
Yeah.
And I looked at how much my mother had sacrificed her entire life. She loved to dance. She liked to do all these things, but she didn't do any of them because she never knew how my father was going to react. So she gave up a lot of stuff. And honestly, we have one go around. And I was like, these kids are little. If I'm going to do it, I need to do it now. And I made the decision where they were really young to just, we separated. And I don't know if that probably was, it was a decision I made at the time. But so he went back to his mom's, and he would come he had open visits. Wasn't one that said, I got myself in trouble with that at some point, but come take the kids on the weekends, because now this is what happened to Gene. Now Gene's 28, 4 children, and felt like I missed something. Well, I don't know what I thought I missed. So
now you're trying to make up for it.
I'm going back out to clubs again.
Yeah.
Now I'm going out, and I'm going out in mini skirts and long thing. And he never said, "What are you wearing?" And you're going out that door. You're my wife, and I don't know where his head was at. So I just said whatever, and somewhere between all of this, it went from Vikes to the OCs came out, and I think they came out, and I don't even know when they came out, in the 90s.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
1990.
I was already doing heroin in 95, 96. So
Yeah, I don't think it was in the 90s. I don't think it was
There was-
1990 that it
no,
came
no,
out.
there was people.
Mid 90s.
Mid-
Yeah,
90s.
there was people that I was getting them from back then,
Right.
and I was taking them and selling them and getting heroin. I
they-
skipped right over them.
Yeah, I was saying, no, I had to go the whole route. So, anyways, yes. So the guy up the street, and they were brand new at Spankin' at the time. I think they were the only 10s, or they might have been 20s, whatever. And to make a long story short, that was my starting point into an 8-year habit. Every day. It went from 10s to 20s to 40s to 80s, 380s a day.
That's insane.
Yeah, and I was tiny. I was only I thought I was 92 pounds, and somebody would say something like how sick I look, and I'd be like, damn, you're just so damn jealous. Oh, you wish you looked like me right now.
right.
And they're like, no, we don't.
Yes, fucking skin
But
and bones.
I couldn't see any of it.
Yeah.
And I was functionable for a lot of those years. I worked a full-time job.
Well, you had to. That's what is that? $240 a day?
Yeah, well, and so my story gets into eventually Gene can't afford $240 a day. The rent's not getting paid, but the landlord's my parents.
Oh, yeah.
So the roof didn't get lost, but, and I put that out there. I mean, I did prostitute for a little while here and there while I had my daughter in the backseat of the car. It's the things we do is really
Yep.
dark, serious places this disease takes us, and I swore I would never, ever in my entire life do anything to that degree. And
But
my disease did not.
Yeah, we
care.
don't.
That's
we
right.
we can
Didn't
we
care.
and we can
If you
mean
have an
that when we
option.
say it. Like, oh, I'm not gonna do that, and you're gonna mean it.
Of course.
But
follow that disease down the
this
path
just
long
sits there
enough.
with the hammer and chisel and just chips away,
Of
chips
course.
away,
That's right.
chips away, and your standards bar just goes down and down, and it happens with everything. It happens with a job that you'll take. It happens with a person that you'll be with. It happens with the shit that you're going to take from someone, and
That's right.
what you're going to allow people to say to you,
Absolutely.
and how you're going to allow people to treat you.
You settle for less
It's
every
so
day.
great. Yes, settle for less.
How many options you have keeps getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you have options, you're going to take the best one, or the one that fits in your moral compass or something,
Yep.
whatever.
Right.
And then when you don't have any options anymore, you're
That
going
goes
to do
out the
what you
window.
got to do.
Yep.
And I think that's when I realized it wasn't until, like I said, it was like an 8-year run. It wasn't until I had done something like that, and my logic in my head was, my daughter's in the car seat, she's blind, she don't know where we are. You know, and like the things I tell myself to justify. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
so crazy.
And would go in there and go in and come out and then say, I will never do that again. And I will honestly tell you, about 7 hours later, I was back in that driveway doing the one thing that I said I wouldn't do again.
Yep.
That reminds me of that reminds me of my boy in the backseat of my truck. Locked the door. I ran up. I was in Brockton, side of the road. He's in the truck. I ran up. I buy the crack.
Yeah.
I'm looking out the window. I run over, look out the window, wait till somebody open the door, look out the window. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
He's out in the street.
Yeah.
In Brockton.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So crazy.
You know, and then it wasn't until, you know, so in that 8-year span, and this is quick, I'll make this quick. Once that marriage was over, once again I go seeking. Even though I've got the drugs in my system now, I'm still seeking for that perfect person that I think is going to fix me. Because I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm not happy. I don't like this. Why do I buy a car? And everything was always a flashboat with me. Everything was always about the outside.
Yeah, like you have no idea that you're restless, irritable, and discontent.
Exactly.
No idea.
None.
Yeah.
None. Until I got to page 52 in the big book, and I was like, oh yeah, right.
Yeah,
Okay, there I am.
That's me.
But it was like, all right, I'm just gonna do what I do. I'm gonna go back out and find somebody. And I met someone a lot younger than me. That was the gentleman that I was helping find crack on the floor, and I'm like, what's going on? And it's really sad sometimes with the court systems with this, but you know, he does. You know, these kids out here, and my boys experienced this also. You know, they did a crime related to their drugs. Nothing really super, you know, I didn't rob any banks or anything, but you know, he violated a probation due to it. He couldn't stay sober, and the judge says, you're going to jail. And he goes to jail and tries heroin for the first time, and he was 25. I was 31. I was rocking the cradle. But anyways, on a serious note, you know, he came out, and 2 weeks later he overdosed and died. And it happened to be the weekend that I chose not to be around him. I decided to go out with my girlfriends and go down the Cape for the weekend, and my phone got blown up, and I'm like, nope, I'm not doing this weekend, because I had, at this point, found my way into sobriety. I came in, I did 3 detoxes. I did, High Point was my very first one in 1999.
Is that when it was over at the VA?
No, wait a minute.
Manomet.
No, I went to High Point when it was on
No,
the VA
I went to
property.
the one down in Plymouth.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
Plymouth was the first one I went to.
Because it was
That was Catholic
mine
Charities.
was
Charities
Catholic
is what
Charities.
I'm thinking of.
Mine was
Yeah.
Catholic Charities on Main Street in Brockton, next to where Edwina Martin is now.
Yeah.
No, on
And then it was
123.
Catholic Charities on
123.
the VA
Yeah,
grounds,
right.
and then it went from Catholic Charities to High Point.
Oh, it did.
I
Yeah, I
didn't
didn't
even
know that.
now. See,
I always thought High Point was just in Manomet. And
They bought it, and then it was gone, and it was over to where the old Sergeants used to be, where it is now.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. No, I went to
Yeah.
so he had passed
Catholic
away, and I
Charities.
was like, I didn't really. I had gone to detox and came out and knew not. Didn't learn anything. Mostly, you're not gonna learn anything in 5 days or 7 days.
I didn't go to detox to get sober. I went because I didn't have any money, or I was just too sick to deal with it. You
So
know,
I
like
went
I
in.
didn't know.
Yeah.
I went in and I came out. And I just repeated that, and he passed away. And you know, I think within a month I was back in another relationship with another gentleman, and 2 years into that relationship, he overdosed and died while I was in detox.
Wow.
I woke up the night before I went to detox, and I said, oh my God, I don't know, but one of us is going to die. And I said, I'm calling in the morning, I'm getting a bed, I can't do this anymore.
Wow. Somebody was looking out for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I called, and that's when I made my way down to, I went to Gosnell. And I got, my mother and my sister came in 3 days into my detox. I knew something was wrong. They told me he had passed away, and I chose not to leave. I knew better.
Wow.
I knew that leaving wasn't, and part of me too didn't want to leave because I thought his parents and people were going to blame me because they knew that we were both doing it together.
Yeah,
So a lot of it was my own.
That stuff happens.
Yeah. So I didn't.
Everybody who's hurt is looking for somebody.
I said,
to blame on.
I'm not coming out. I'm gonna stay right where I'm at, and because I had done 2 spin dries, because I guess that's what we want to call it.
That's what I already
right?
called it.
Yeah. The last time I left, I was told this too because of how sick and twisted my thinking is. Because obviously you guys know that this is a thinking disease.
Yep.
Yeah.
And my mother says to me, "What are you doing?" I said, "I got a bed tomorrow at Gosnell." "All right, where are you going?" I'm going to get my nails done. I have to go to the mall. I have to buy all new clothes. I'm going to get getting my hair done.
The Gosnell runway you were going to. Yeah.
She's like, "Where do you think you're going, on vacation?"
Yeah.
I said, "Well, I know one thing." I said, "I'm going this time, and I'm going for however long it's going to take me because I can't come in and come out and come in and come out."
Yeah.
And I had that set mind when I left. So I went to Gosnell and I said, "I'm going to the Emerson house." They said, "Well, that's quite a wait." I said, "I don't care. I'm going to wait for that house." So I bumped from, I think at that point, Gosnell was 28 days program.
Yeah, it may have been.
Really? When was this? 90?
Yeah.
I was never
No,
lucky.
99, 2000.
Yeah, I was never lucky enough to get down that way.
I think I went.
I
went
lied
to
and said I
Gosnell.
knew somebody on that, living on that address, but that's how I got in there. And
I was only there for a week.
It was 28 days, and then they bumped me over to a Hyannis holding facility at the time, and I was very fortunate. I was only there 3 weeks, and 6 girls in the house got booted, and I remember.
So you moved right up the ladder.
I moved right up the ladder, and I remember driving up to that big Victorian house, and oh my God!
And that's the
because
Emerson
I never spent
house,
time
is that
with
what you said?
It's the Emerson's house. Yes, it's in Falmouth. It's a
Falmouth.
house with 42 women.
Woo-hoo.
42. And
times.
and you probably heard it from a lot of girls, like they were not my friend.
Yeah.
I was always looking for the guy.
Yep.
So women.
So they were threats.
They were threats.
Yeah.
And I remember walking in there, and like I said, I was really thin, and one of the girls goes, "Yep, she's definitely a heroin addict or something. You can tell by the looks at her." I'm like, "Oh, here we go."
You wanted to kill her.
Yeah, and it's like anywhere that you go, if you want something bad enough, I knew to keep to myself. It's like the clicky thing back in school.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to get sober. And thank God took me 3 times to do it. But I'd lost our 2 boyfriends, so I think it's kind of like hello, wake up, you're next.
Yeah.
To desperation.
And I didn't want anybody raising my children. I wanted to be the one raising those kids. You know what I mean? They were my life.
So
they're with your
they're
parents?
at like what, 8 now, maybe?
Corey was like 8, Jesse was 6, and the twins were 5 around that point, I think. Believe it or not, they stayed with my mother, and my ex-husband had stopped drinking for that period of time. He went on a little thing where he wasn't drinking for like a couple of years.
Nice.
So I was afforded that to be able to go down there and take whatever time, because I said, I don't know how long I'm going to be down here. It's usually a 3-month program, but I'm not coming back until I figure out what's going on with me.
That was good. That was what you needed.
Now, had you been exposed to any types of meetings at that point, or had you gone to any, or?
So prior to that, I tried NA, was the first program I went into, and please don't any of your listeners take this the wrong way. So, I came into NA, and I was petrified of the women. They looked too tough and mean. Yeah. And I was like, oh, no, they're going to beat the crap out of me. And so I was very timid, and I felt like at the time, I was too afraid to open up, which is really strange for me because I'm very sociable with anybody. But there was something about it that I just, like the whole program itself clicked with me because when I was at the Emerson house, and I always tell this story too, because alcohol, I didn't use alcoholically. I was always like, well, I'm not an alcoholic.
Oh, yeah.
So
right.
When I had a meeting at the house, they would have a meeting at the house. The little lady that was no more than 4'11" ran that place like top notch.
Yeah.
Anybody in here think they're not an alcoholic? And I really, like, 100%, my hand went up. And she looked at me and she's like, well, really? Okay, so what's your drug of choice? And I said, opiates. She said, well, let me know. Go get yourself a glass of wine. And when you're through with that glass of wine, you let me know what happens at the bottom of that glass. Boom, the light went on. Because I knew once I had that glass of wine, I was just going to go get my pills.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so simple. It's such a simple way of thinking.
It was just so simple. It just put me into a place I was like,
Brilliant.
oh, put that hand down right now.
Yeah.
Well,
put that hand down.
That makes me think, you know, what the difference between AA and NA.
Oops.
Okay. Besides some different literature or whatever, what is the difference?
Really nothing.
No.
So you're telling me that alcohol needs to have a special program because it's not a drug? That's what gets confusing for people.
But in the NA literature, it says alcohol is a drug.
Yes.
So there you go. So
it was
what?
I don't know.
What are we doing?
Why was it separated?
Our founders were alcoholics.
Yeah,
and
back in
the
30s.
focus was strictly on alcohol,
right.
And then people started talking about drugs, and they were like, that's really not, what we're about here. And that's when someone went off and was like, well, listen, there's a lot of people that need this program, but they don't want to talk about that. And
right. That was
I've read the literature. Fucking Bill took drugs.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, Bill got fucked up.
Yeah.
No, but that was last century, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what are we doing?
Yeah.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
Today's world.
Now there's heroin. I mean, I was in a Heroin Anonymous, the CA, there's Drug Addicts Anonymous. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, what are you gonna fingernail clipping anonymous? You know what I mean?
You name it. It's out there.
Yeah.
It's out there.
It's it's all the same stuff. It
is all the same.
Hey, all it takes to start a group is a fucking coffee pot and a resentment. And boom, there you go. Oh, fuck them. I'm going to start my own meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Start my own
So
fellowship.
I did start in there, but I had a really rough time connecting with the women. And so it just didn't fly with me. So when I went to the Emerson House, I was forced for 3 months to learn about women.
Yeah.
And to learn that, we're the same, and we all have our own inside stuff, and we need each other to get through it. And they always say that a guy's gonna pat you on your ass, but a woman's gonna save your life. And it's so true. And that started a journey for me with relationships with women in my life, and realize like I'm not alone. Like when I tell my story, I'm like, I see a million girls, even
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
But you
Even
think
men.
you're so
Powerful,
different.
yeah.
But we think
you
we're
know what I
unique
mean?
and different, exactly, and we're not. And it's all about that void and just not feeling, good enough. And like I said, my addiction has gotten me from drugs. I can't say sex was one of them, but men, drugs, and then gambling became a huge problem for me for a lot of years before I.
Fixing feelings.
Yeah, exactly. And so I completed the program, and they said, when you're done, do what you need to do, which is get your ass to a meeting, get yourself a sponsor as soon as you can, join a group, because the people in the group are going to get to know who you are and what's going on in your life.
Yeah.
I didn't hear the steps at that point. We'll get into that, and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay. And there was 2 women in my area that were leaving the same time. And thank Christ for that, because I think if I had walked out by myself, that fear of walking in alone, sometimes that stops a lot of people.
Yeah,
from
Would have
walking in the
kept you out of the meetings.
It would have kept me out.
Following up the house, the treatment center.
So we made a game plan. We left. We said, okay. And one of the girls, Karen, had already been circling meetings probably a couple years before me. So she had all the set meetings that we were going to go to. Mm-hmm. And my first group became New Way of Life, Friday nights in East Bridgewater. That was my home group for, God, like 12, 15 years.
That was actually the first podium I spoke from.
Yeah.
Petrified.
Big
Is that
meeting.
the one in the center or no?
No, it's
Bridgewater Center?
right near West Bridgewater High School, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Big church on the right-hand side. Go down and take a left. the road goes to the left. The high school's there, police station, fire station.
Yeah.
Oh,
Very,
yeah.
very big meeting.
It was a very
Oh, yeah.
Huge.
I haven't been over there in ages, but it was a
Huge.
showboat meeting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It definitely
Showboat?
was.
Yes.
Showboat.
Yes.
Everybody just showed up with whatever they got going. Oh, they got brand
yeah.
new sneakers. This got brand new boots. You know,
Yeah.
whatever. I was
Yeah,
like, but whatever got you there, and
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
that became my first group. And then I remember how I ended up joining it. I went on a commitment at Catholic Charities, so someone said, "Hey, you want to go to a commitment?"
Yeah.
I didn't know what a commitment was, but I'm like, "Yeah, I'll go." And there was like 6 or 7 of us, and I spoke, and one of the girls, I think you probably knew Lee. I'm not. So this girl Lee says to me, "Hey, she's not supposed to speak. She doesn't belong to this group." I said, "Oh, yes, I do. Sign me right up right now."
Oh, I think I know Lee.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna fix her for saying that. So that's how I ended up joining the group.
Yep.
Get
It's
what you
funny,
need sometimes.
exactly. You ain't kidding. And I had a blast. Believe it or not, this, we talk about getting sobriety. I was probably in my early 30s, which kids are coming in real early today,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
and I had the babies, and I say to people now, like, if you want it bad enough, you'll go to whatever. I'm talking, like, I brought 4 kids, and back then they had a child's room.
Yeah.
And I came in with double strollers with the 2 twins, and then I had a stroller with the other 2, and,
Yep.
I
Wow.
had people that would sit and watch them while I could get the message, all that stuff, and I went on booze cruises. I went on all sorts of things.
Sober cruises.
Sober cruises.
Yeah.
What did I say?
Booze cruises.
I don't know where that just came from. Smoinies just went on when I think. Yeah, they had the sober cruises. They had ski trips. And then, I always talk about the fellowship. That's where I met some really amazing women in my life. To share some stuff with, and by all means, here I am, a mother of 4 babies, raising them by myself, and he was around on the weekends, but I was pretty much the caretaker. I mean, he wasn't very good at financial responsibilities, and I worked full time.
Wow.
And I stayed sober for 2 years, but I didn't change the person I brought in, and I slowly. But the funny thing was this: someone said to me, "Hey, why don't you check out there's a SEP meeting over in Weymouth on Wednesday nights, co-ed. It's a big book meeting." I said, "Oh yeah, okay, I'll go to that." I sat there for a whole damn year. Listening to the cycle, like maybe I don't. What do you mean I can't speak? They don't want to hear what I have to say.
Was that across from South Shore Hospital?
No, this was right down the street from Jimmy's. Jimmy's near the plaza, but it was on the back side street. So if you're coming up near Thayer Academy, it was down near the church in the corner at the time. Right before I had relapsed, I got in a relationship. So I stayed out of the relationship for a year. Like they tell you to stay out of a relationship.
Yeah.
All right, I'm good. I can get in a relationship again. And he relapsed, and I didn't do any work on myself. And thank God it was only like a 2-month run. And I bought myself right back in. And I had gotten in, that's when I started to cycle some of the big book meetings, but I didn't do the work. But I was still doing all the other stuff that I was supposed to do. I had a sponsor, and I was going to commitments, and I was going to meetings and all that stuff. And like, good for someone that can do all that. But I was 2.5 years sober, and about 6 months prior to that, I asked this woman to sponsor me through the steps, and I did it because she was scary, and she didn't believe in open AA, and she was a big book thump and all that crap. And I said, she's gonna make me do it. Really needed someone that was gonna force me to do it,
Yeah.
And I never called her, but I'm driving down the road, 2.5 years sober, and I want to kill myself. I didn't want to pick up, but I didn't know what was wrong with me, and everything in my life was wonderful at this point.
Yeah.
My kids are gotten older now, and I've learned a lot of things from the women, how to raise my children and be a good mom, and, my boys were into sports, so Corey was getting older, and he was a good kid. He was like I always talk about. He's like that all-American boy. He did well in school. He didn't give me any trouble. I didn't see any, you know, thing that I was going to worry about as he was getting in his high school years. He had a girlfriend he met in his freshman year, and they were good, and he was an all-star football player, great. My middle kid was getting into, I could see him. I'm like, oh, I'm going to have my hands full with this one.
Yeah.
And then my youngest son, Jordan, being premature, he developmentally was really slow. He wasn't retarded or anything like that, but his development level, he was way behind, and just had a really tough time with comprehension and common sense. I would make jokes like, if you don't be quiet, I'm going to throw you in the trunk. And he'd look at me and go, you're going to put me in the trunk? Like, he really couldn't differentiate what I meant by it. And so we were seeking a lot of doctors with him at that time, and he had ADHD really, really bad. So I called up my friend, and I'm driving. I'm like, what is going on? My kids are all good. My life is good, and I don't know. I'm like, and I'm sober 2.5 years. He said, can you stop crying and pull the car over real quick? And I said, sure, not a problem. He said, write this woman's number down, call her tomorrow. I swear to God, Gene, she will help you feel better. I said, okay. I called the number, and wouldn't you know, it was the woman that I asked to sponsor me like 6 months prior. God gives you what you want, huh?
Yeah, gives you what you need.
That's right, gives me what I needed. And I literally was in that much pain. I called her up. She said, can you meet me at Starbucks in Marshfield? I said, yep, be there at such and such time. It was in the summer, I remember it. We did steps 1, 2, and 3 really quick. She goes, you want to do 3 in the bathroom? And I said, no, I want to do it on the beach, because there's something about nature with me. Broad daylight down at Marshfield Beach. I'm holding a woman's hand doing my 3rd steps prayer, you know? And I'll tell you what, I didn't get no lightning bolts, but when I got up off my knees, for some apparent reason, I've got a wave of peace that told me the next thing I'm about to do is going to change my life. And I knew I was going to be okay. She goes, now go get yourself a notebook.
Yeah.
I wrote for
nice big thick one.
Yeah, well, I don't. When I took women through the steps, but this was my first time. I wrote for 1.5 years, 7 notebooks.
Oof.
Wow.
Long time. And I stopped. I put it down, and then my life got a little colorful. I didn't pick up or anything, but I got, you know, and I met with her every Thursday. She had to make sure I was doing, which was good. That's what I liked about it, because she was on me. Every Thursday, meet me at the Canton Big Book meeting, check to make sure I was doing it. So, you know, I did my steps 4, 5, 6, 7 around, right around the time I was doing my 8th step. My dad, a direct result of his using, had a heart attack. They revived him, and I got the call that they were bringing him to the hospital. By the time he got there, he had been down for 20 minutes. My father was brain dead.
Wow.
And they brought him up to ICU. We had to wait. My poor mother was in Foxwood. She had that long ride to go. I called my brother and sister, and everybody came in, and we you know, they just said there's nothing we can do. And so we made a decision family-wise to pull the plug. And each and everybody got their chance, and it wasn't the way I wanted to do my amends with my dad, but that's where I got to let go of all the crap that I had carried for all those years. And, you know, apologize for things, you know, because it was 2 ways at times. You know, I had my own nasty behaviors that I got to see through my writing. And, wow, I can't tell you, I had carried for almost 40 years, a lot of crap to do with my father. And I was able to, it just all washed, it just went away. And it took him 4 days. We always say they're waiting for somebody, but anyways, 4 days later, and me and my daughter were the super close ones, and he waited till we left the room, and he passed. And I was 6 years sober when that happened. And I gotta tell you, this is where the program comes in. The people that showed up at that funeral parlor didn't even know him. They showed up for me.
For you.
They showed up for me. The support I got, it was amazing. for some apparent reason, and I always tell everybody my story, I like to do the steps backwards. Yeah, you know, I've done the steps 4 times now, and then I do the same thing. I stop helping others.
Yeah.
I stop praying and meditating. I'm not taking my personal inventory. I'm taking yours, Chris.
Yep.
And then, 9, I don't need to make any amends because I'm not hurting anybody. And I don't have any character defects. And I'm not telling anybody anything. And I got this.
Yeah.
And I do it every friggin' time.
Yep.
Spiritual peace becomes real tough for me. And right around my 8-year medallion, the next day my son had a toothache and there was 2 codeine sitting there. I'm like, give me those. No thought process to it, nothing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just give me those.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't, the afterthought, it was like after I put them in my mouth, and it wasn't even, Tylenol, codeines weren't even going to do anything for me. It was like a joke, but I was like, I cannot believe, how baffling is that? I cannot believe I just did that. My pride and my ego got in the way, so it kept me out there for like a good 6 months. So in this whole mix of me, my son is now 17, and so the kids knew about sobriety. The kids knew about meetings.
Yeah, because they lived it.
They lived it with me. They were in the halls with me. I talked about the steps. They knew about the step work that I was doing because they were all getting old enough. Corey's in high school doing really well. Jesse's 15, and he's starting to get into trouble, and he's doing stupid stuff, and he picked up pot. Corey didn't do really that. He was reminding me a lot about myself. I mean, he probably drank occasionally here, but he didn't really get himself in any trouble. Football was his thing, and his girl was his thing, Jesse started pot at 11. The pot, and he was very hyper too. My kids were all ADHD and hyper and couldn't sit still, and bipolar runs on my ex-husband's side of the family, not on mine, but they had a lot of mood swings, and he decides to go do a couple B&Es and gets caught, and then does another one and gets caught. So they have a place called Holland Detention Center in Taunton. It's an actual jail for juvies. And Jesse was placed into that system for 6 months, and then came out. I was living in Easton at the time. He was on house arrest for 6 months and drove me crazy because he couldn't leave the house. And so I was dealing with Jesse and all of his stuff, and then we have Jordan, who I really believe mental health really needs to be at the forefront, because this poor kid suffered. As he was getting older, he started to display a lot of manic behaviors, crazy stuff. Right before he had passed, he was in a psych ward the year before that. It came out around 18, when he turned 18, and he picked up pot a couple years before that too, to slow himself down, but nothing really crazy. And then all of a sudden he thought I was trying to poison him, and some schizophrenia behavior came out, and we cycled the psych wards. He was in 8 psych wards in 1 year. What would happen is he'd go in, they'd treat him 3 weeks, he'd come out, he'd take the meds for a couple weeks, and then he thought, I got this, I don't need this stuff. And then 2 weeks off his meds, he'd be doing stuff crazy, like standing in the street or whatever the heck he would do, and barking like a dog. It was crazy. And, so I got him in hospitals over here, and this one he has house arrest. This one's okay, so I don't have to worry about it. And then all of a sudden, it's his senior year. He gets in a couple of, when we're talking about my oldest kid, and I'm sober through all this stuff too, And Corey comes to me in his senior year after a couple of football injuries and a couple of prescriptions of Percocets. Girlfriend's breaking up with them because it's their senior year and she's going off to college. So the heartbreak of the romance.
Hard.
And he comes to me because he knew he could come to me. My kids always knew they could come to me. And he said, I got a Percocet problem. I don't know what to do, Mom. And I'm like, okay, well, you're going to have to go to detox. I mean, and that's where you're
It's the
going.
first step, yeah.
Yeah. First
So he didn't display the behaviors of an addict until he was exposed to the perks from
the
football
accident.
the injuries.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Prior to that,
Yeah.
nothing. I mean, he didn't even go to really football parties. He wasn't really much of a drinker. He didn't. I know for a fact he didn't like the pot. He went straight to the opiates, kind of
Yeah.
like his mom. I mean, opiates is my drug of choice. And I said, okay. He graduated. I'm like, I think his graduation was like a week or two away. And I'm like, can you graduate? And let's just get you graduated.
Yeah.
Can you hold on? And I'm like, we got him graduated, and he immediately went to his first detox right like 2 days after graduation. He went to NORCAP, and from NORCAP, he went right into Project Turnabout over here in Weymouth.
Oh, in Weymouth, yeah.
And he stayed there for 4 months. He did really, really well. At least this is the worst thing for a parent. You know what I mean? It's like, especially, I don't know. I always say to parents, because I talk a lot too, with the grief stuff, is it better to know what I know, or is it better to be not to know what I know? But
you're talking about as an addict in recovery.
Yeah, I mean, because after doing my step work and seeing all the isms and the behaviors, I could start to. It was almost like they were like in my book. One of my sentences they're mirroring my behavior. Like I could see what they were doing.
Yeah,
I could see how they were. The behaviors, the clothes, the sneakers, the girlfriend.
Get sober, try and fix the feelings, not do any work on themselves, relapse.
Exactly.
Just the cycle that we do.
Yep. And so I, Jordan at this point went to live with my sister for a couple of years because I couldn't keep myself in the right track. Was worried about Corey, and then I could see where Jesse was going, and his mental health was too much on top of everything. So they were willing to kind of curve it over to them a little bit and help me keep an eye on his mental health part, because the second the kid to stop taking meds, he was in a hospital.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like in restraints. He got arrested one time. We had to tell him, listen, he's not on drugs. It's just because of his mental health. Banging his head off them.
Yeah, because they're gonna think that he's in psychosis or whatever.
Right, exactly. So, and so I got focused on trying to get my son where he needed to go, and so to speed all this up, because we could be talking forever. Corey started at 17. If I have to guess, 50 detoxes.
Wow.
Every halfway house on the South Shore. He did North Cottage, he did the Andrew House, he did the Anchor House, he did the Hope House, which I guess they throw a kid around calling it the Dope House.
Yeah.
But he did that twice. He could only get a couple of months underneath his belt, and he would just keep on doing the same thing, and it was always, he could get a job, he'd work too many hours, and then the girl comes into play, and then the relapse came into play over and over and over and over, and I'm just like, And for me, I think I sounded like Charlie Brown to my kids, because it was coming from their mother. Yeah, right. All right, Mom. Because all I kept on saying to my kids was, just get in the steps, get in and look at what's going on inside you. I don't think that my boys had a very they went through catechism. I took them, they learned about God and stuff, but they didn't have that belief system as they got older. For some reason, there was no such thing as whatever.
Relationship.
Nothing. And I know they struggled with that. So my days would be like, okay, Corey's out on a run on the streets. I did tough love. I did the enabling. Nothing worked for me. Some people get the tough love and the kids get it. My kid was out on the streets and it didn't make a difference.
Right.
Jesse had now gone from smoking pot to Jesse was my everything kid. He did everything that he could get his hands on. Crack, coke, heroin.
Yeah.
Whatever he could do to get the relief. He was everything. And he got in trouble with the law most of the time.
Yeah.
And so, it became about a juggling act between detoxes. And Jesse got section 8 times. Corey only once, but Corey knew that when things got bad enough, he went in on his own and got his help and did what he did.
That's Section 35, sent to jail, basically. Detox jail.
Well, I'll tell you about the Section 35, my experience. It's a joke, but it isn't. It gave me some break, but it's like they held him one time, 12 days. I was like, 12 days? What do you mean let him out in 12 days? You know, it wasn't even 30 days. They let him out at 21 days. The only time he was not and had to do it when he went to Bridgewater. And he had to go to Bridgewater 3 out of the 8 times. One time at Matt's, he actually climbed the fence and left.
Wow.
So, you know, this was a juggling act, and it was very tiresome for everybody. And, you know, the stealing came into play of everybody's stuff being stolen and my stuff being stolen. And, you know, but I went to wherever I could send my kids. I was always there, detoxes, this, that, whatever. But it was around April 11th of 2013. I was at work, and my son Jesse called me up, screaming. I couldn't understand a word he was saying to me. And he said, Jordan's gone. I'm thinking, gone where? You know, wasn't.
Yeah, this is the youngest
This
one.
is the youngest one that never touched heroin or opiates. It was far from me to ever think this was going to come. I'm like, gone where? And I realized in his voice, no, Mom, gone, like Jordan's dead. And I remember dropping the phone at work and falling to my knees, and it was like, I was in a fog for a moment, and then I stepped back up and got on the phone and said, all right, I'm on my way. I remember someone from work saying, you ain't driving, we'll take you to wherever you're going. And he was staying at a friend's trailer. By the time we got there, I had called family members. By the time I got there, the police had already, there was, I don't know how many, the police were there, and the morgue, or the, whatever, coroner was already there. And they basically said that, you know, he was gone, and there was really nothing we could do, and there's no sense of us sitting in the parking lot. You know, you're not going to want to watch your son come out in a body bag.
Yeah.
So why don't you, you know, go home and be with your family? And it took me a while. I was like, how did this happen? This kid is, you know. At first, I thought he committed suicide, to be honest with you, because he was struggling at the end with his psych medication and always feeling like there's something wrong. He's like, why am I like this? I don't want to live like this. His toxicology report came back. He died from Suboxones and too many Xanax and Klonopins was in his system. And Corey, at the time that this happened, was in Long Island in a program. Jesse was doing okay. But Jesse and Jordan became best of friends because Corey, being the oldest, started to cycle out to detoxes. He wasn't around for his brothers as much because he was never home. He was always in a program. So those two became real close. Plus, they were less than a year apart. So, but Corey was, I went there and they allowed Corey to leave under my supervision for 48 hours. And he was able to do his brother's eulogy. And he went back to the program. He did well for a while, and then he relapsed again. His last attempt was, so Jordan died November 11th of 2013. The summer of 14, I called up a friend and said, what am I going to do with him? He said, bring him up to New Hampshire. I'm sure you guys know Danny.
Yeah.
So Danny said, bring him up to New Hampshire. There's no detoxes up here, but I'll throw him on my couch, detox him, and then put him in one of the houses up here for you. So my son, Corey, was always willing to go to whatever. He just couldn't get it, you know? So I got him on the bus. I said to someone, because he was high as a kite, I'm like, please make sure he gets on that bus and off that bus, because I was so afraid, like, you know, as a mother, we're always waiting for that phone call. I had already gotten one, but I already thought that I was already going to get the phone call from Corey or Jesse at this point, not Jordan. And he got up there, and they did exactly, detox there, got in the program, and Danny started to try to get him on the step work. And I know he's working step 1 and step 2, but he took a job up there.
Yeah.
Here we go. So the job became a little more hours and not enough time to meet up with Danny to do the step work. And then the next thing you know, a girl comes in the picture, and then I get the phone call I relapsed. And I can't do a sober house, Mom. I got to come back and get into a long-term program. So Corey hopped on a bus, came back to Massachusetts. We made a phone call. This was around October, end of September of 2014. He went into High Point down in Plymouth. He called me on October 4th and said, can you bring me some cigarettes and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yep, not a problem, buddy. I drove down, dropped off the cigarettes, and then he had called later and said, listen, my insurance isn't going to cover me to stay. They want me out of here on Sunday. And do you think you can get me back into Long Island treatment, which they closed that day?
Yeah, Long Island.
On the 5th.
That day.
I said, okay, I'll do what I can. I said, listen, when you get up, take the train up, give us a call, and let me know what's going on. And it was Sunday, October 5th. He was supposed to take the train up, and he was supposed to be at the train station at 1, and my mother went to go get him, and he wasn't there, and she called me, and it's like 3 o'clock, and he wasn't there, and I'm like, I already knew. In my gut, I'm like, okay, well, he didn't do the right thing, so something's up. And when he's done doing what he's doing, he'll call one of us or whatever, because that's what I'm used to. And lo and behold, he did. He called his father, and it was the weirdest thing because he's never gone to his father. It's always been me. I've always dealt with it. He and Rachel's always been daddy's girl. And, you know, like I said, my daughter's blind and been blind to this day, so he's kind of been that thing with her. But he called his father. He got there at 8 o'clock, and he made a few phone calls, and he said to his father, okay, I'm going to go take a shower. The Patriots were on. His father said, okay, no problem. David doesn't know anything about drug addiction or heroin addiction. He's an alcoholic. He doesn't understand when the boys go in and turn the shower on, they're doing their works, they're getting set up, they're doing their thing.
Yeah.
When they did it with me, they had 5 minutes, and I'm knocking on the door, and if you're not answering, I'm kicking it. I had Narcan everywhere in my house, my purse, my car. 45 minutes goes by, and he knocks on the door. He doesn't answer, and he kicks the door open and finds Corey hunched over. There was blood everywhere. He tried to do CPR on. He called 911, and then he called me, and he said he doesn't look good. I said, all right, it doesn't look good. And what's that mean? Doesn't look good. He wasn't breathing. I said, oh, Jesus. You know, I'm like, okay. And I lived in Marshfield, so I drove from Marshfield to Brockton because David was living in Brockton. The cops had already came back.
Yeah.
And told David, sorry that he didn't make it. And so we got to Brockton, and I got the phone call right before we hit the parking lot that he didn't make it. And I just remember kicking the back of the car seat going, this is a joke, right?
Yeah.
I mean, 2 kids in 18 months. What is going on? So we were able to go in, and the doctor came out and said, listen, we tried everything we could for him. We just couldn't save him. Nobody is allowed to go back and see him except for me and David were allowed to go back and see him. And it's tough because it's something that, you know, it gets embedded in my head when I look at it, but it's like, you know, I went back there, and I was kind of pissed at the hospital. They didn't clean any of the blood off him. He had blood from his ears, from his nose, from his mouth, from his eyes. He bled everywhere. And I, you know, typical mother, took the cloth and I cleaned all the blood off him, and, you know, said my goodbyes to him. And I got the toxicology report. He died from fentanyl overdose. Also had benzos in him. What a deadly combination. These kids just don't understand today when they're taking the Klonopins and stuff, and then doing the stuff. It's not even dope out there anymore. No. It's pure fentanyl.
No one even knows what it is. It's insane.
It's crazy. And you know, I didn't mention this, but at the same time now, so I have 2 children that died, and I didn't have life insurance policy. I don't even have life insurance on myself. I never thought in a million years that I'd be burying my children.
Yeah, right.
And so fundraisers were raised, and people in AA, and they raised enough money. It was almost 10 grand for Jordan's, and then just when Corey died, it was almost 11,000, and all that was raised from people that knew and cared and loved me. And
Wow.
Yeah, you know,
Pretty amazing.
I'd like to say that I stayed sober, but what happened with me, I was I was like 4 years sober. I stayed through sober through Jordan's, and after Corey, I just lost it at Christmas time, and I went on a good 6 months tear, and that's when heroin came into play for me. I had never touched it before, and my life got really bad. And Jesse, at this point too, now his brothers were gone. He couldn't deal with life. He kind of gave up a little bit, and he was on his run. So he was out here doing his crap, and I was doing my crap, and we were no use of each other. So I made a decision to leave to go to Florida. I was like, I can't. Every corner I looked at, it was a memory, and Jesse was pulling me down with him, and I couldn't help him, and I felt like the only way I could help him was to help myself. So I made a call to Matt Gammon, and Matt said, I'll get you out to Banyan in Florida. I kicked it home. I said, I'm not going into another detox. I hadn't been in a detox since 2000, so I kicked it home, and I got on a flight in August of 2015, and I came back in November of 2015. I've been sober since, and
Nice.
Jesse, when I came home, was a disaster, a complete disaster, and I could see it in my kids' eyes. It's like, and I saw it in Corey's at the end too. You know, it's like, why can't I get it, Mom? What's wrong with me? Why is this person getting it and that one getting it?
Oh, I
and
so remember
this one
that
get
feeling.
that, and I'm not getting it. Why do I keep on? I knew, like, I could see the pain in his eyes, just like how bad he wanted it, but he couldn't just connect the dots, and it was the steps that he was missing, but he just didn't get there in time, you know, and so I said to Jesse, I'm like, dude, I don't know what we're going to do, but I sectioned him a few times, and then I thought, okay, I'm going to send him to Florida because I had such a good experience with it. And I sent him out in January on a scholarship, and some of them are legit and some of them aren't. I sent him out the first trip around, and he thought it was a vacation. He kept on relapsing and bouncing and this, that, and I was sending him money, and I'm like, I'm not sending you money anymore. You're going to need to come back here. I can't deal with it. Plus, I couldn't keep an eye on him.
Yeah.
He had overdosed 8 times in front of me in 2016. I literally knocked into my son 8 times. The last time he overdosed in front of me was the second trip to Florida. So again, I tried to keep him here. We tried every detox around here, every program. It just wouldn't stick with him. And he was so defiant. He didn't like people telling him what to do.
Yeah.
And it was September. I am on my way to Braintree. He overdoses in my back seat. I knocked him twice. He didn't come through, so I had to call 911. He finally kicked out of it. When they got there, the ambulance showed up, and they said, well, you're going to the hospital. And I'm like, listen, he's got a flight in like 1 o'clock in the morning. This was at like 8 or something. And, well, we got to take him there. And believe it or not, I kind of was thrown back when he got there because they gave him benzos. Like, you're giving someone that just overdosed on heroin benzos. What are you trying to do? And 2 hours of him ranting and raving, they got so irritated. They're like, all right, fine, go. Go.
So they just
See ya,
kicked him
bye.
loose.
Yeah, go.
Wow.
That was Quincy Medical Center. And so I got him in the car, and I thought he had nothing left on him. And I got him to the airport at like 11:30, and I got a phone call at his flight was at 4, I want to say, I think, because he called me from Boston Medical Center. He overdosed again in the bathroom at the airport, and somebody found him and brought him there, and he was crying, I don't know if I'm going to make the flight, but there was a Boston cop must have escorted him with his lights on all the way to the airport because that kid got on that flight.
Yeah.
Wow.
He made it on that flight, and you know, I talked to, that's where he was sent somewhere, and then the patient brokering. I was on Fox 25 with this because what happened was somebody out there that was not maybe 2 months sober working for a facility said, hey, dude, I can get you a deal. Come check this place out. They're going to buy cigarettes. You don't need this. And Jesse was just so easily, like, he didn't really want to be there. He gave up after he lost his brothers. He said to me before he left, what would you do if I died? And I was like, dude, don't even go there with that. And you know, he overdosed once out KFC, and then I started to get nervous, and I'm like, I think I need to send him back. And it was November 3rd. He called me and said, I just finished a program. He was really happy. He said, Mom, I finished it. I'm going to another place. It's a really nice place. I think I'm going to get it this time. And I said, awesome, Jesse. I couldn't be any more. I'm so excited for you. I'm so proud of you. I'm glad I got to say those things to my son. And he dropped his bags. And I got a call Sunday saying they found him on Delray Beach. He had overdosed and was dead. And I was driving. My mother knew the whole ride home that I had lost my third son, but she knew not to tell me while I was driving, because I probably would have killed us. And she waited till I parked. David, my ex, already knew, so I was the only one that didn't know. And I'm like, why are we going to David's? Because the police came looking for my ex-husband at a Hanover location. I'm like, oh, the cops are looking for you. I think you're in trouble. Never connected the dots. They're looking to try to identify the body.
Your son probably had gotten in trouble and used his name and used his address at one point, and that was the only way they had to contact anyone.
Exactly, right. And then he had to identify, and Jesse had to put a 13 skull on his tattoo, and that's all David had to say was on his face to identify the body. We didn't have to fly out there. We identified some of his tattoos.
So this is in how many years you lost all three sons?
So from 2013 to 2016, 3 years.
So in 3 years.
Like 3.5 years, I lost all three. He died from, he didn't even have heroin in his system. He had cocaine and carfentanil, which is an elephant tranquilizer.
Yeah. Wow. It's like 10 times stronger than regular fentanyl.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't even, minuscule of it.
Yeah, it's insane.
And I'm sure that he wasn't with anybody. I'm sure whatever little he had, like a lot of us, I don't want to share it with anybody. Yeah. So he, he bounced out of that place and had nowhere to go, and the beach is where he ended up. And again, like I said, I didn't have the money, and people raised $18,000 because this one I had to have him embalmed out there and flown back, and then the whole funeral. And thank God the money was raised. It afforded me to do a headstone at the Rockland Cemetery in Rockland. Is there a headstone? It came out beautiful.
Yeah.
So it's been tough. Life on life terms is what. That's perfect right. Show.
Yeah. That's right.
There's days I don't want to get out of bed. There's days I don't want to deal with it.
But you're doing what you can to help other parents through this.
But I do.
That's right. And you do deal with it.
I do.
Power of example.
To be commended for that, for sure.
I don't want to cut your story short, but we're
mine's a long story. You'd probably need 2 hours.
But we can definitely have you back on.
Oh, absolutely.
And you can talk more
about the
if there's any websites or anything that you want to talk about and throw out there, or any organizations that you're with.
Basically, I probably 3 years ago. It's just like a resource page too. Like I set up. It's called the Macaulay Boys Hope Fund, which is just a page with all sorts of resources and information. I did do a clothing line called Recovery Happens, which is on Facebook. I didn't do it this past year, but I am hoping that I will restart the clothing line again.
And
so.
Also, you started writing.
And I'm writing my story. Yes, and that's going to take a little while.
Yes,
about 50 pages in it, and it's only my story so far.
Yeah. Well, you got to start somewhere.
That's
right. Good though. Yeah, and we want to have you back on when you finish that. I think would be good, because then we could talk about that. We need to get into the grief process too.
Yeah.
And how you've dealt with that, because that's important for people who are going through this, because we know there's a wave of people who are going through this.
There's tons.
There's a whole generation.
There is, and I'll just throw this out real quick too. So for there is some really great support groups online. I do belong to Mass Team Sharing is one of them, and it's strictly for families that have lost loved ones through substance abuse disorder. Yep. It's a pretty good one, there's Robin has The Sun Will Rise is a grief support group. She meets Tuesdays and Thursdays. One's in Braintree and one's in Quincy. You can find her online too. So
what is it? The Sun Will Rise?
The Sun Will Rise. Robin lost her son Nick when he was 19 a few years back. So she created that support group. And it actually has its own meeting at the town hall and stuff.
That's great.
There are outlets out there, and it's the best thing you could do is to, if you haven't been through it,
Yeah,
You need
you
to
don't know what to do. You got to find someone that does just like
That's right.
this stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
It makes me think. We're here on this planet for a good time, not a long time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a temporary physical experience that we're going through, and I believe that we're spiritual beings going through a
Absolutely.
physical process.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
why just drown it all out? Let's be aware and awake to experience it. You know
Yep.
what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you.
And if anyone has any questions or needs any of that info that we just put out there, just message us, and we can get it to you.
Yep. Get us
All
on
right.
Facebook.
Thank you very
Group.
much for sharing your story with
Oh, well,
us.
thank
Yes,
me
thank
for
you
having
very
We
me.
much.
appreciate it.
Not a
And
problem.
Please subscribe. LOLTerms.com.
yes,
And that's it.
Night,
we're out.
guys.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace.